A lot of you are building businesses that look like they're moving, but don't feel like they're multiplying. And what's tricky about that is you're not doing random things. You're actually doing a lot of the right things. You're showing up, you're building, you're making moves, you're putting real effort behind what's trying to grow. But it's happening all in isolation. Your positioning is trying to move in one direction. Your messaging is adjusting in real time. Your execution is chasing what's working. Your ambition is pushing forward. Your structure is trying to keep up, and none of it's fully synced. That creates a very specific kind of tension. Not loud, not obvious, but persistent. That quiet frustration where something isn't clicking the way it should, even though on paper you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And if you felt that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not stuck, but you're not locked in either. You're moving, but nothing is multiplying. You're building, air quotes, but nothing is carrying forward the way you expected. You see the vision in your head. You've been the architect and made the blueprint, but you're building, but you're not seeing any materialization of the skyscraper here, if that makes sense. Basically, you're expending all this energy, but not creating distance. You're active, but not advancing. And that's where people get misled because activity feels like progress. And I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings here, but until you zoom out and realize you're still in the same place, just more tired, more frustrated, more confused about what's actually working and what's not. Your bank account is still the same. Your leads are not enough closing. It's just kind of flat. But you're doing all the things to the point of desperation. That's drag. It's not the resistance that stops you. Resistance that slows everything just enough to keep you from ever fully breaking through is the construct. It's the loop we don't want to be in, but many of us can find ourselves in. It shows up in how long it takes you to decide. It shows up in how often you revisit the same dang decisions. It shows up in how many times you rebuild instead of refine. It shows up in how many opportunities get closed but don't close. And over time, that cost compounds. It compounds in launches that miss the window. It compounds in deals that stall and disappear. It compounds in effort that looks productive but doesn't convert. It compounds in energy spent solving imaginary problems you thought were already solved that didn't need to be solved in the first place because they didn't solve the bigger problem. But it made you feel good. It's kind of like, hey, my checklist, my to-do list, my task list is a lot. I'm going to add things to check off that gives me the impression they're working and makes me feel good on the inside, but doesn't do a dang thing for my business on the outside. Then you look up months later wondering how you did so much and still don't have the traction you expected. And that is how businesses miss their numbers. That's how momentum slips quietly. That's how people end up on the wrong side of the stat everyone throws out. Most new businesses, new startups, first 5 years in business, first 3 years in business don't make it out. Why so many businesses don't make the 6 or 7 or 8 figure coveted extravaganza status quotes that they want. It's not because they didn't try. It's because they stayed in motion without ever creating real movement. It's because they never fixed what was really underneath. And if we can take a quick moment here, I want to make a simple agreement with you. For the next 20 minutes, think of me as your accountability partner. Not background noise, not something you add to your inspirational business podcast playlist, not something you nod your head to and move on from as you're diligently working on your business. Actually use this. Actually apply something you hear. Because I'm going to be real with you. I didn't spend the midnight hour putting this together for it to just sit in your queue and be background fodder. And honestly, you shouldn't be listening to my podcast or any podcast for that matter if you're not planning to take something from it and actually use it. Now, if you're here for entertainment, cool, I get that. But most of you, you're here because you're looking for that one thing, that one shift, that one idea you can build on to actually move your business forward, to actually grow, to actually make that MONEY. Am I right? On my end, I'll make you a promise too. I'm going to give you something you can actually use, something you can look at your business through and make better decisions immediately. And no worries, I'm confident I'll hold up my end of the deal. And if you actually do something from this episode, leave me a review. Tag at Fantroy. Let me know what you've applied. I like to see who's really out there executing and doing the real work. No pressure though, but I digress. Did you know that most businesses only use 20% of their data? Man, that's like reading a book with most of the pages torn out of it. Or you're paying for the bag of chips that says it's full, but it's only a third of the bag. It hurts, doesn't it? Point is, you miss a lot unless you use HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business right now. The insights trapped in emails and call logs and transcripts. All that unstructured data that makes all the difference. Because when you know more, you grow more. And when you get that full cup of coffee, you can definitely do more too. But I digress. Visit HubSpot.com today. Can we sit with the feelings? What you're experiencing isn't random. It's a disorientation of structure. And the easiest way I found to explain how to improve structure is through what I call, and what I'm introducing to my audience, is the S3 growth streams: strategy, synergy, and systems. 3 growth streams your business is already operating within, whether you know it or not, whether you've defined it subconsciously that way or not. We're going to do that right now. And here's the key. Most of the time, when something feels off, it's not everything. It's one of these. But because you haven't separated them and organized them and isolated them to diagnose, identify, fix, and grow, you keep trying to fix all of it at once. Or worse, you're applying effort in the wrong places that never gets you anywhere. And that's how you stay busy without actually progressing in ways that actually move the needle forward. And just so you know where this is coming from, I'm Troy Sandidge, 15 plus years in the game, over 200 million plus in revenue generated, 40 plus brands launched, built across startups, agencies, enterprise teams, been in the B2B, B2C, media, healthcare, education, manufacturing, spaces, verticals, and more. And all across all of that, this pattern keeps showing up over and over and over again. When growth feels inconsistent, heavier than it should, or harder to hold on to, or harder to make things happen, it's almost always one of these streams breaking down. So let's get into these streams and talk about how you can identify where you are, which stream needs to be fixed or modified and adjusted to help you amplify and grow.
What's up, digital world? You're listening to the I Digress audio experience with Troy Sandidge. Social media, marketing, storytelling, business, culture, and more. Coming to you in 3, 2, 1.
Now, let's talk strategy. And not the way people usually talk about it. Not brainstorming, not ideas, not let's try this and see what happens. I'm talking about clarity. Because most businesses don't lack ideas. They lack a clear center. And when you don't have a clear center, every decision starts to feel heavier than it should and less productive, active, and actually moving anything forward. What do we say? What do we build? Who are we actually for? What matters right now and what doesn't? If those answers aren't grounded, your business doesn't just slow down. It starts drifting. And drift is a very dangerous place to be because it feels like progress. You're technically still moving. You're technically still executing. And you're doing a lot of things. But your messaging keeps shifting off by 1%, 2%, 3%. Your offer keeps stretching, expanding, and a ton more features and less more about the outcomes. And your focus keeps changing depending on the moment, which again, confusion in messaging creates confusion with buyers, and confused buyers do not buy because there's a conflict. And now you're not sharpening the business, you're diluting it. That's the hidden cost. Not lack of effort, lack of precision. But here's something you can check immediately. If someone asked you right now, what do you do? Who is it for? And why does it matter? Could you answer that cleanly without over explaining, without adjusting mid sentence, without trying to say everything at once. That I know you've heard this before, but I'm gonna be real, it's true. A fifth grader can understand it. And would it sound the same tomorrow? Not that you need it to be rehearsed, but the concept, the construct, the very essence of it is the same throughout the entirety, every time you have the conversation. Because if the answer keeps changing, that's not communication. That's a strategy gap. And everything downstream is working harder to compensate because of it. Let me say this very plainly. If your business isn't clear, it can't scale clean. Not because maybe necessarily people don't get it, but because they shouldn't have to work that hard to understand it. Now, here's where it gets very interesting and gets more real. Because, let's say you are very clear. Your value prop, your messaging, it's all dialed in. Your brand positioning feels strong as ever. And your offer makes sense, not just on paper, it makes sense into the market. The demand is there, the pricing is there, chef's kiss. And things still feel off. Okay, then that's not necessarily strategy anymore. That's synergy. This is your alignment layer. This is how everything connects. And this is where most businesses quietly lose the most money without realizing it, because nothing is technically wrong, but nothing reinforces it either. You're in the in-between, you're in the influx, you're in the paradox, you're in this weird growth purgatory where on traction and on paper, even by the KPI standard, we're doing good. But on the sales, on the conversion, on the growth side, something's not right. And most times people fall into the default of doing more paid ads, more content on the top of the funnel versus is everything on the top of the funnel aligned with the middle of the funnel, aligned with the bottom of the funnel? Is everything aligned with your flywheel, or what I like to call pathways? But we can talk about that in a whole nother episode. Nevertheless, think about how people actually experience your business. Sure, they see your content, they've checked out your website, they get on a call, demo, video, whatever. They even go through the follow up. But all of that should feel like one continuous experience, not a random segue of pieces that don't connect. Doesn't necessarily have to be the same person at each interval, but it should feel like the same person talking at every interval and every interaction. Your brand voice, how you're communicating. But again, more importantly, beyond your voice and your copy, the psychological effect being the perception of value and the experience going with it, does that flow in harmony? It should feel very continuous. But for most businesses, it feels like four different versions of the same company at every touch point. And here's what happens when that's the case. The brain slows down, not because people aren't interested, because they're trying to make sense of what they're actually seeing and experiencing. And when the brain has to work harder, it delays action. That's not a copy problem. That's not a lead problem. That's not a funnels problem. That's not a marketing problem. That's not a content problem. That's not a workflow problem. That's an alignment problem. So let's make this more practical. Go experience your business like someone who's never seen it before. And I know many people actually tell you to do this. I know I'm not the first person to tell you to do this. And I'm sure you've probably done it like half-baked doing it, if we could be real. But have you actually just incognito mode, saw your LinkedIn content or your video on YouTube or your TikTok video or whatever your pipeline intro awareness push is, and experienced it from start to finish? Would I click? Would I watch? Would I engage? Would I buy? Would I want to learn more? Or if you're too in the headspace of it, ask someone else to do it for you and be there with them, experiencing that. And you'll see really quickly that was too long. That was a lot of fluff. There's like 10 other people doing the same thing. Where's the differential? How does this make sense? How do I stand out? That didn't land, or that didn't connect, or this was great. But when I got to the landing page, it totally sounded totally different than the energy I just got from here. And God forbid you had paid money to that. That means in that one interaction, the transition between the video ad that they loved and then the website experience, you lost 85% of the people that could have been potential buyers. I think people also forget in hindsight here that for every person that actually becomes an opportunity, that actually becomes real revenue, think about how much is actually missed. I know the whole is the glass half empty or the glass half full. What if we were thinking of this from the perspective of, yo, this glass is only at 20%. But no, the water's really at 80%. No, no, no. The water's full of 80% of opportunity, but we only close 20%. I'm not coming from the perspective of thinking negative. I'm coming from the perspective of let's reframe how we're gauging how well we're doing based off what we actually need for this to be successful. So if you're looking at the alignment layer of your whole experience of your business, from first introduction to actually becoming a client or customer, or even beyond that, an advocate to help you close more business, your experience throughout is probably really bad. More than you think, because you could have closed more. You could have gained more opportunities. You could have got more customers or clients. But, oh, we hit our KPI mark. Yeah, but who's to say your threshold of 23% could have been 47% if we had better alignment? Nothing else changed besides just better alignment. So seriously, experience your business from start to finish, like someone who's never seen it before. Start from discovery, move through your content, look at your offer, imagine the conversation. Or does it feel like you're slightly reintroducing yourself at every step without really adding anything of value that builds off the previous experience and is not cohesive? Because every reset costs you. Every moment of wait. What exactly do they do again? Costs you. Every disconnect creates hesitation, and hesitation creates less people willing to buy or even explore the opportunity to buy, and hesitation kills momentum, and you're just stuck in this loop of losing more than what you could have gained. Of that glass being percentage wise more and more water being real opportunity to really conversions versus just a glass that looks great on paper but not fulfilling. That means you're not really quenching your thirst. You're just drinking in the hope that, hey, it'll eventually get there, right? And you're wasting time, money, energy, and resources. And lastly, when synergy is tight, something shifts. You don't feel like you're convincing people. You feel like you're confirming what they already believe to be true about their situation, about your solution, about your business, and how you can help them grow and do what they need to do. And that's when things start moving faster, more efficiently, and growing in flow. Content is Profit, hosted by Luis and Fonzie, is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Discover the secrets and strategies on how your business can achieve the frictionless sale. They talk about frameworks, strategies, tactics, and bring special guests to bring you all the information you need in order to turn your content into profit. Episodes like what the NFL knows about attention that you don't, the platform trap that's blocking your sales, or why most entrepreneurs quit too early, and how to scale and make it big. Giving 100 billion meals away and the hidden skill behind building wealth and impact sounds like good episodes to me. Listen to Content is Profit wherever you get your podcasts. Now we get to systems. And this is where a lot of you are probably feeling the most pressure, whether you've named it or not. Because at some point, growth stops because it stops being about the idea of the business and it starts being about the execution of the business. And here's the hard truth. A lot of you have built businesses that depend on you more than they should at this point. Everything runs through you, decisions, directions, approvals, problem solving, all of it. And that works until it doesn't. And you may be a business of one. You may have achieved 6 figures, maybe 7 figures, ultimately by yourself. But you're not really by yourself. Every level of growth requires more than just you to get there. And now with the rise of AI, of course, that needs to be integrated in your business to help you scale at an affordably saving cost. Not to replace human interaction or power, but to eliminate a lot of the time-consuming activities and things that don't matter in the grand scheme of how you're going to grow this business moving forward. But whenever things centers around you, things start to slip. Things take longer. Quality varies. Opportunities get missed. Momentum breaks down between effort. And sure, you can say at every level there's growth, there's more growing pains, great. But beyond that, shouldn't this feel easier? Shouldn't it get easier? Shouldn't the longer I'm in business, the better I'm at, the more money I'm making? Yeah, in theory. But what got you to where you were will not get you to where you want to go. It feels heavier because you're doing the same things. You're lifting the same weights. You need to get stronger to carry the more weight. It's not impossible. You're just not supported properly. That brings us to you have a systems gap. So let me give you something very simple you can use right now. If you explain something more than twice, it should not live in your head anymore. It should be in a system. You should have a standard operating procedure or an SOP. Again, this is nothing new. We talk about this, but many of us, myself included, are guilty of not actually executing on these things. Because let's say, and I love to do this with my clients, let's say whatever it is that you want, you got it like the next month. Boom, snap of a finger, instantly, there it is. The amount of clients, the amount of revenue that you want. And I guarantee you, your systems are going to break down like toothpicks and bubblegum because you didn't build the systems for what you actually want. And this is the thing I think about when I try to help my clients is that I'm trying to help you think about where you're trying to go and build to that infrastructure now. So when it happens, it happens. Versus I'm going to build when I get there. And then you get there and then you're going to be even more heartbroken because you finally got to 7 figures on the books of new business, but you're still operating as if you're only $100,000 of new business in. How you create content, how you move deals, how you onboard clients or customers, how you execute campaigns. If it's not repeatable, it's not scalable. Again, I'm not saying anything new, but I'm reinforcing it because too many of you are still making these mistakes, myself included, again, as I'm saying. Now let's talk about AI more so for a second because I know it's everywhere. I know it's the buzzwords. Most people are using AI to move faster, more content, more ideas, more output. Cool. But speed without structure just creates faster confusion. Faster confusion brings in more volume of people to reject you instantly. You're in the same spot you were before, but just more rejections, just more busy work that never actually gets you to where you want to go. AI becomes powerful when it sits inside of a system that already makes sense. When your strategy is clear and your synergy is aligned, AI doesn't just make you faster, it makes you more consistent. It helps you scale without losing your voice. It helps you build without diminishing your value. And it reinforces what's already working. We're adding on to it. AI without systems amplify noise. AI with systems amplifies leverage, increasing your signal and driving more things to the promised land. That is the difference. That is the difference between people who are just trying to add AI into their infrastructure to make themselves sound good and make them give the appearance, the progress of, ooh, we're improving. But if you're not using it to the actual benefit of your system to grow, you're wasting a lot of your time and probably your money to do this for the sake of things that aren't actually helping you grow. And that's the hard truth. Now, bringing all of this together, these are not separate efforts. These are three growth streams that work together. Strategy sharpens direction, synergy aligns how that direction shows up, and systems support how that direction scales. When they're working together, things feel clean, decisions are easier, execution is smoother, growth feels more controlled and possible. When they're not, you compensate. And I mean, you compensate a lot. You overthink because strategy is unclear, overproduce because synergy is really off, and you overwork because systems are weak and you're compensating accordingly. And that's where burnout starts creeping in for us. That's where frustration builds. That's where you feel like you're doing everything all the time, but not getting the return you expected from that energy and effort because it's misguided, it's misaligned, and it's not moving in the way you need to move. So instead of asking, what should I do next, which is a very common question, let's ask a better one instead. Which growth stream is actually holding me back from the growth potential I want to achieve? Ooh, let's try that again. Instead of saying, what should I do next at every interval, I need to identify which growth stream is not doing its job, like prioritize, which one's doing the worst. What is it? How do I fix it? Because once you answer that, everything else gets simpler. And this is why most of the work I do doesn't start with tactics. It starts with seeing things clearly through what? Strategy. Because what? I'm the strategy hacker. I get it. Because once you can identify where the breakdown is, You stop wasting time solving the wrong problem. You move faster, you make better decisions, you stop stacking effort on top of misalignment. And if you want to see how this maps to your business, I put together a breakdown of the S3 growth streams. You can send me a DM on LinkedIn or Threads or email me at troy@findtroy.com and I'll be happy to share it with you. I'm gonna be real with you. No funnel, no pitch, just something you can actually use. Now, disclosure, there'll be something at the end that if you want to have a conversation with me, a paid consultation with me, you can. But I promise you, this is not going to be one of those situations where you're automatically into a funnel, you're going to get a pitch from me, and you got to jump through multiple hoops to get it. I will literally send it to you right now with good grace. Do with it as you will. Now, most founders are not doing too little, they're actually doing a lot. And whether you're a founder, you're a small business leader, you're a leader in an enterprise company, you're a director, whatever you are, you're doing a lot. We know you are. But the effort without structure doesn't build, it resets. So the S3 growth streams is all about building something that holds, where your direction is clear, where your business is aligned, where your execution is structured. So what you do today actually builds into tomorrow and beyond. This is where you need to go. This is how you need to move and understand all of this. I think sometimes we sit in this weird zone of I'm looking at my business. I'm looking at every single component of my business. And oddly enough, we focus so much on the front end, the website, the copy, how much content's going out there, who's engaging, what other people are doing. And we don't spend enough time on our actual offer. We don't spend enough time on does the offer make sense in theory and in execution? Does it feel like I'm getting enough value? Does the market understand this value for the amount of money I'm trying to charge for it? And this might feel like a very personal question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Be real with yourself. If someone paid you whatever value amount you have in your ideal heart for the product or offer that you're pushing out there, is it worth it? Can you prove it? And would it achieve the outcome, the desire that you're painting it to be to someone? If there's a chance there's a hesitation or disbelief or it's not credible, well, there's some gaps in all three of your streams. Maybe the strategy needs to be slightly refined to a more micro ICP. Maybe your messaging needs to be a little more clearer or expanded to eliminate some of the disbelief. Maybe the alignment between the wow factor at the beginning and when we get into the depth of it needs to be more refined. Maybe your systems just don't match up to the speed or the output necessary to close the deals. But see how I walk through that pretty simply? Instead of focusing on, is it my content? Is it my messaging? Is it my website copy? Is it my email nurturing? Is it my demo call? Is it my sales team? Is it my marketing collateral? Is it my funnel? Is it when you start listing every single thing within your business that you touch versus just which section? Let's focus on the strategy, the mindset of that section, and then going into the micro in there, you have a lot of friction versus having a good structured flow. It's easier to navigate and look through your business. This is what I do. But also, this is what I'm encouraging you to do, whether you choose to work with me or not. Take what you're getting from this and literally organize your business that way. Take out a piece of paper or note or email even and put down system, strategy, and synergy and start filling in the blank under each one. And identify what part right now is probably the worst part and focus on tweaking that. That doesn't necessarily mean I get the urge of wanting to create more content or create a whole new offer, a whole new packaging. No, 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 no. We need you to get fuel. I'm going to be so real right now. A lot of businesses are failing not because their concept isn't good, but because their proof of concept isn't making money. I'm not saying any money is better than no money, but I am saying if you're not seeing anyone buying at all for this new offer, for this new position at any price point, I don't think you have a viable thing to charge what you really want if it's not fully there. So you really need to make sure that at least money's being had. And I'm not saying this to be rude, I'm saying this to be real. Because we can romanticize because we're looking at someone else doing the same thing we're doing that they're making and charging this amount of money and actually getting it, but ours isn't. Now, keep in mind, they can be implying that they're making that money, but in actual, they may not be. It's all smoke and mirrors. We have to be real. Not everything you see on social media and the internet is real. I'm sorry. That's a fact. That's the truth. But we like to think, and I like to think many people are doing and achieving what they're actually achieving in business, right? I can be real with myself. Am I achieving the growth that I want from me as a consultant and as a strategist right now? Heck to the no. But I have helped a lot of businesses make real money. And I really believe if I improve my offer and my positioning, it will help make me more money at the same time. And for you, you need to think of that in the same way. Am I fully aligned? Is it structured? Does it make sense cohesively? Does it land? And are we seeing some type of result? Again, this brings me back to my Clover business framework: clarity, leverage, optimization, vision and value, execution, and results. Sometimes we're very clear. The vision and value is there, but we're not getting the results that we want. But everything else was aligned. But if we're not getting the end result that we want, something is wrong. As my dad would say, something wrong. And we need to understand that and apply that in a way that makes sense. And sometimes going deep and looking at our business from unbiased eyes and ears, because we're tone deaf, because we've been too deep in the weeds for so long, can be challenging. This is where outside help can come into play to give you fresh eyes and ears to really see what's wrong with my business. And not from the perspective that your business is wrong, but something within the flow from the strategy to the synergy to the system is broken and preventing you from achieving the growth that you want. Once you identify that, it will be much easier to move things forward. Sit with that. Think about that. And let me know what you've identified. Because then we can get really micro in future episodes of I Digress of talking and breaking down the strategy side of it, the strategy growth stream, or the synergy growth stream, or the systems growth stream. Now, I get it. Some people want to jump right into the system growth stream, but even with AI, if you don't have the right inputs, it's just going to regurgitate what it implies is already working from an assumption, which is wrong. You need to make sure everything feels right and is actually performing to the way it needs to be before you get into the system side. I want you to make money first. Before you can scale, you have to be stable. And before you can be stable, you have to be driving something of value that's generating something back. And so whatever state you're in, whatever phase you're in your business journey as an entrepreneur, leading a team, building an enterprise, whatever, it still comes down to these three growth streams. So let's focus on identifying what's not achieving to the level that we want. Let's break that down, organize what we're going to do next, and move this forward. And come back and compare notes and see what happens. How does that sound? Now, that wasn't too bad, now was it? See you in the next one.
And that's a wrap. We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Digress. What was your takeaway? Care to share your thoughts and tag Troy on social media? You can find him on all platforms at Find Troy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review or comment for this episode from wherever you're listening. Looking for a marketing strategist to build the structure, strategies, and systems you need to get the success you want and the ROI you desire in your business? Book a discovery call to talk with Troy at findtroy.com. And as Troy's philosophy goes, imagination is the engine, content is the fuel, social media is the highway, marketing is the roadmap, sales is the destination, culture is the GPS. Thanks for listening.